Thank you for your testimony. Dr. Collins, as one of the co-chairs of the Congressional Parkinson's Caucus, I was proud that we included the neurological condition surveillance system as part of cures. It's estimated that 1 in 6 people suffer from neurological disorders. This neurological surveillance system would gather information about patients, including incidences, prevalence, and also demographics and outcome measures. I know that the CDC would run the surveillance program, but NIH has the experts that would use the data. How will having this information available to NIH assist biomedical research at the agency and in the research community at large?
Thank you for the question. That feature of 21st Century Cures, which, as you point out, is assigned to CDC to develop this neuroscience assessment of prevalence and incidence of neurological conditions, is certainly something that if the data were available, we would find it quite useful. I think at the present time, because of the funding issues, CDC has not been able to act upon that. We are certainly deeply invested in Parkinson's disease research, including working with industry on something called the Accelerating Medicines Partnership. It's possible that the All of Us program that's going to enroll 1 million Americans over the course of the next 3 or 4 years will provide some useful information here, because some of those folks are going to have Parkinson's. Quite a few, in fact, when you consider how frequent the illness is and that the fact we're talking about 1 million people. But it won't quite substitute for what you asked CDC to do. I think this is a circumstance where the ability to get the information is not trivial. It takes a lot of resources, a lot of time, and here's where CDC, as I understand it, is having a hard time figuring out how to actually do what Cures Act asks them to do.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Gottlieb, during my Cures roundtables in my district, I heard from a woman who had a child with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. She talked about 2 hurdles: the challenge of acceptable biomarkers and the need to incorporate patient-reported data. In Cures, we had a provision dealing with patient-reported data, as you know. You mentioned in your testimony there's a new section on patient experience data. Can you update us on when that came online, how FDA will incorporate that data in the review process, and what does FDA hope this type of feedback will lead to?
We're starting to do that right now, Congressman, and Cures did give us the ability to expand on these opportunities to try to build in better measures of the patient experience as a measure of how we look at efficacy for purposes of approval. I think the opportunities that we're going to have that I'm most excited about is better opportunities to look at things like physical performance. So you talked about Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. One of the objective endpoints that we use in measuring outcomes in that clinical setting is traditionally a walk test. That is meant to approximate physical function and look at whether or not new therapies are improving physical function or slowing the rate of decline in that clinical setting. But what if we had a tool that allowed a patient to wear a device, maybe it's a watch, that measures their physical performance in routine daily living? That might be very preferable to trying to do it in an artificial setting of a clinical trial where you're doing it in a sort of random fashion when a patient comes into a doctor's office for an evaluation or checkup. If you're able to look at a patient in their daily life, that might provide a much more objective measure of how a drug might be impacting their life. And so these are the kinds of opportunities that I think we have with new technology. They're the kinds of opportunities I think that this legislation is giving us the legal basis to make better use of. And this is what I'm looking to the future for.
Very good, thank you. Again, Dr. Gottlieb, the other issue that was brought up in my roundtable was the challenge of acceptable biomarkers. This has been an issue that I've brought up in prior hearings. Can you update us on changes FDA has made, and how can we encourage the greater use of biomarkers, particularly for rare disease patients, where traditional clinical trials may be too hard for them to, they're limited in population, as you know. So if you could answer that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Congressman. Here again, Cures provided us with new New opportunity. Sorry, that was my watch talking to me. The legislation did provide us an opportunity for the incorporation of drug development tools into our regulatory process. We have a biomarker qualification program now. We have 8 biomarkers that are under consideration, all by various consortia. We also have another program that allows us to develop sort of other kinds of measures that can measure efficacy or performance of patients in clinical settings, and we're going to qualify the first for major depressive disorder very soon, a new survey tool that looks at outcomes for patients who are suffering from MDD in a clinical setting. Again, this is a qualification process that was created by Cures as well. So these are moving forward. We're seeing a lot of interest in these kinds of opportunities, and we think this is going to provide a very important framework for the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, thanks, gentlemen.